What should you do in order to negotiate a good price from your supplier? What are the steps you should follow in order to make sure that you don't get scammed? All the information and so much more in this video, so let's get started. Now, one of the most important skills that you really need to master and learn when you start your business on Amazon in the Middle East is sourcing. By that, I mean finding good suppliers, negotiating good prices, figuring out samples, figuring out how to send inspection agencies to inspect your products. All of that is very necessary if you want to have a really good product and provide a fantastic product to your customers. It is a little bit tough. However, I'm going to be talking about 4 major steps that you need in order to make sure that you are sourcing successfully and in order to make sure that you don't basically get scammed. For this video, I have a special guest with me. Kian Golzari is a product development and sourcing specialist. He's been doing this for the past 10 years. He's manufactured products for the NBA, for the Olympics, for world-renowned athletes such as Neymar Jr. and Kobe Bryant. I did do a live masterclass with Kian for the members of Amazon Sellers Society Middle East. It was a 60-minute masterclass. We went through all of the steps for sourcing and we answered a lot of frequently asked questions. You can watch the live masterclass and you can find it linked in the description box below. Now, without further ado, let's get started. So Kian, thank you so much for being a guest on my YouTube channel. I'm so happy to have you.
Oh, thanks, Crystal. It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for having me. And I'm super looking forward to diving deep into this topic with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just jump straight into it and let's start with our first step, which is basically search. How do I find a good supplier in China or overseas? And what exactly is the difference between a trading company and an actual supplier or manufacturer?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. And I think that like when you're sourcing from China, you really want to like analyze, first of all, where you are in your business. If you're beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And I think the majority of people who are starting off are going to be beginners. So if you are a beginner, the best place to definitely start is you kind of have like 3 options that people talk about. You've got Alibaba, Global Sources, and there's another website called 1688.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I would definitely suggest people to go through Alibaba first, because Global Sources is another online platform, but it's quite dated and it's not as modern and like understanding and knowledgeable as like Alibaba. And 1688 is just, you hear some people talking about it, but it's just a local Chinese platform for like Chinese domestic market. And why I suggest not using 1688 is, yes, you can probably find cheaper prices, but because it's only for the Chinese market, they aren't really focused on, quality or necessarily like hitting the right standards that we require to sell products in America or Europe. So like a lot of people say, just get your prices from there and screenshot it, but it's not the same thing. We're not comparing like for like. So for that reason, Alibaba is the best place to get started. But one important thing that you have to understand is that on Alibaba, there's a lot of like middlemen which have appeared on the platform, because as Amazon has really grown in sales, well, Alibaba have noticed this, and then now people are just jumping onto the platform, pretending that they're a factory or pretending that they're a trading company to try and get your orders. You place your orders to them, and then they go and find a factory for your order. So it's important to really try and avoid those middlemen. And just like some quick tips I want to give you for like, avoiding middlemen and going straight to the right suppliers.
So we need to avoid those middlemen or trading companies, basically, especially as beginners.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's always more beneficial to work directly with the factory, but if you're a beginner, it's also okay to work with a trading company as well, because sometimes a trading company can provide you with a service that a factory cannot. Like, for example, for me personally, I've been like sourcing and living and working in China for the past 10 years. So I love working directly with the factory. But if you're just getting started out, you might want to maybe just work with a trading company, and that trading company will work with several factories on your behalf. You just tell them what you want. But like, a beginner maybe doesn't necessarily know how to go and contact those different factories.
Yeah.
But when searching through Alibaba, like the best way to use a platform is to search by suppliers, not by products. Because when you type in what you're looking for at the top, you can select products or suppliers. But when you search by products, like you can get 20,000 like listings that come up, and it's just so hard to navigate. There's so many different results. But when using Alibaba, you're trying to find the best suppliers, not the best products. Because once you find the best supplier, then you can negotiate your price and negotiate your quantity and things like that. But it's just important to find the right ones first. So once you search by suppliers, then you want to select trade assurance and verified. And trade assurance just means that like Alibaba will protect you. If you receive an order of not what you stipulated, then Alibaba will refund you, just so you have like a bit of confidence knowing that you know you're not going to get scammed. And then like verified just means that Alibaba or a third party have gone in and checked that the factory are who they actually say they are. They have the number of machines that they say they have the number of workers that they say they have. So you have a little bit more confidence. And when you select those boxes, it really narrows down like the number of factories that you can now talk to. So you've basically just cut out a lot of the middlemen as well. And there's a few other things that I like to do as well, like check the number of years that they've been in business. Because some have only been online for 2 years, 3 years, but you kind of want to work with factories which have been online for at least 5, because Amazon has really emerged as a global platform in the last sort of like 4 or 5 years. And if they've only been selling on Alibaba for 3 years, then chances are they've just jumped into Alibaba to try and jump on, like, you know, try and grab somebody's sales. So, and then the final thing is as well, is just kind of look at the markets that they're supplying as well. Because if you're looking to import products into the USA or to Europe or to the Middle East, then you should be like selecting those boxes, because you can select where the suppliers like send their orders to. And that's really important, because
you want them to have a little bit of experience with sending products over to that particular marketplace, basically.
For sure, yeah, it's that, and as well as like the quality standards as well, because like the regulations in Europe are different to the Middle East, and they're different to Africa and to America. So once you see those standards, then you know that that's a good supplier that you should be working with.
Okay, that kind of is easy. So because I do know a lot of people do have the mindset of suppliers on Alibaba are basically going to scam me. However, I don't feel that that is necessarily the right mindset to have, especially now. Maybe that was true 5 or 6 years ago, but what Alibaba have set in place, all the great requirements that they want and need from their suppliers, I think, you know, I've been hearing less and less horror stories from people having issues with suppliers. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. And the best thing that Alibaba have done is add that trade assurance button. So worst case scenario, you do get scammed, well, you get your money back. So like you have that safety net.
Yeah, exactly. So step number 2 would be negotiate. And this is something that a lot of people, I'm sure beginners, they know they should negotiate. However, they don't really know how to negotiate. So step number 2 would be negotiate with suppliers. Can you really negotiate with suppliers? And should you probably create like a contract or something to kind of use?
Sure. So the first thing is that like the suppliers are actually expecting negotiation. So like when you first like, you know, put that price out, when they first put the price out there, it's normally a little bit inflated, because if you go for the price, then great, they've made more margin, but they're expecting you to say, no, this is what the actual price is, and negotiate a little bit. So the best way to actually negotiate is to be like very knowledgeable about your products and about what you're purchasing. Because if you don't know the true value of what you're buying, then how can you know what is a fair price? And how are you in a good position to negotiate? So the best way to really know the value and the actual real price of your product is, what I like to say is like compare apples with apples, and basically educate yourself on what the market price is. So a good example that I like to take is like an outdoor furniture chair, right? Now, an outdoor furniture chair could be steel tubing, it could be aluminium tubing, it could be polyester fabric, it could be nylon fabric, it could have a waterproof coating on the fabric, it has different dimensions. But if you just go on Alibaba and type in outdoor furniture chair and say, you know, what's the price of this? What's the price of this? What's the price of this? You're not comparing like for like. So you're going to get prices of like $6, $8, $7, and you're like, oh, I'll go for the cheapest one, but they weren't the same. So how to get around that is what I always do is I create like what I call a specification sheet. Some people call it a tech pack, and also on Alibaba they call it an RFQ, request for quotation. And in that specification sheet that you create, you want to basically put all the details of your product. Like my furniture chair is 80 by 40 centimeters. It's polyester fabric. It's aluminium tubing. This is the thickness of the steel. And then once you know what you want, you create that specification sheet and you send it out to all the suppliers and say, hey, this is what I'm purchasing. What's your best price? And now you're going to get prices of like $6.90, $7, $7.10. So you know like roughly what the market price is. Yeah. And if someone says, oh, this is $5, well, you know that's not the case because everyone is quoting around $7. So yeah, they're going to give you the $5 price, but they're going to take shortcuts on the production and deliver you something inferior. But because you've now like educated yourself, and then the best thing is that you don't have to go with like the cheapest price. You want to go with the manufacturer that you align with the most, the one that understands your vision, the one that wants to see you grow. And all you say is, hey, you know, you offered me $7.10, but I've been doing my research and I've been talking to other suppliers, and other suppliers offered me $6.90. If you can just match that price, I'm happy to place the business to you. And then once you do that, 9 times out of 10, they'll say, yes, you've got the best price on the market and you've chosen your best supplier. And that's the best way that I would negotiate. And you know, based on the contract that you were talking about as well, the best thing you can do, your contract is basically your purchase order. Yeah. In your purchase order, you basically stipulate the terms of like, you know, what you're buying, how much it is, what is the delivery date, and things like that. And then you sign it, and you also want the factory to sign it and get their company like stamp or company chop is what they call it, and that basically makes it like official in China. And some people also get the purchase orders like written in Chinese as well. I don't think that's necessary, just like English is fine. But what I do is that like I just have the purchase order, which is clear, and I create another document called terms and conditions. And the terms and conditions I apply to the purchase order. And in the terms and conditions, I stipulate, you know, this needs to be the thickness of the box on the outer carton. This is the agreed delivery date. And if you're late on delivery by more than 14 days, then you must air freight 30% of the goods at your own expense. Okay. Things like terms that you want to create that is very important for your business. And then once they sign that and stamp it, then you're good. So that's really the best way to.
So your purchase order is the basic stuff, and then you can create a separate document, which would be terms of service, and you know, add whatever you want to add. That's actually fantastic. Thank you, Kian. Yeah. I just want everybody to know also, before we jump into step number 3, that you have an amazing YouTube channel, Sourcing with Kian. I will definitely, they can find it easily. However, I will leave it linked in the description box below, and they can find a lot of information about sourcing, because I always say that, you know, the basis of having a successful business on Amazon is the actual product. However, the product is not the product idea, because you have an idea, but unless you can source that idea from a fantastic manufacturer, then you basically only have an idea. So you formulate an idea and then you move on to sourcing, and that's when you have a great product. So sourcing is a very big and important thing. So yeah. Now, moving to step number 3, pay. I guess we already talked about that through trade assurance. What other tips can you give us related to maybe getting a refund, asking for a refund? Is it easy? Should you pay in any other format other than trade assurance if you're working on Alibaba?
Yeah, great question. And I feel that, like, first of all, like the normal payment terms when you work for a factory is 30% deposit and 70% balance payment on the remainder of your goods or once they're shipped. And that's just like, as you build and you scale your orders, then you can start to negotiate better terms and even credit. But as a beginner, those are the sort of terms that you can expect. And that's just very standard, like business practice. And then obviously, like to protect yourself, you know, we talked about Alibaba Trade Assurance, and that sort of gives you like good security. But if you want to pay like maybe off of Alibaba and do a bank transfer, well, you can also do like a letter of credit as well. And the letter of credit is basically like your bank secures your payment. Your bank pays your factory on your behalf, and your bank also protects you the same way trade assurance does it. If you don't receive what was stipulated in the contract, then the bank won't like release the payment, or they can claim it back. But they do take like a percentage for that as well. And some people, I don't recommend it, but some people also make payments on their credit cards, just because on credit cards they can do a chargeback as well. But then you get into sort of like issues with banks and stuff like that, and it might get a little bit messy. But in terms of like returns and refunds as well, like that's a great question. And like what I do is that any returns that I get on my products, I log all those returns. So like if you order 1,000 units and you get, 25 returns, there's a note on my system to say I had 25 returns out of the 1,000. Now, what I do is that I always just claim any returns on my next order. So I always let my manufacturer know about my returns. So when I'm ready to place my next order, let's say we're ordering 1,500, I'll be like, by the way, on the last shipment, everything went well. However, we did have these 25 returns that were damaged. They came back to us, the product failed. So for the next order, I require you to also provide those 25 items free of charge. And what they normally do is if you're ordering 1,500, they'll ship you 1,525, just replacing the damaged goods before. But I think it's also important to be fair to the manufacturers as well, because sometimes you can get returns on Amazon because like arrived too late, or they ordered the wrong thing. So obviously just be fair to them and just tell them what it was that was actually returned. And then, the other thing is that there's something called the AQL level, which is the accepted quality level. And that's kind of when you get an inspection, you have an AQL level, which is your minor, major, and critical defects of a product. And it's like the minor defects, it's like standard business terms that you're not supposed to have more than 4% minor defects. And a minor defect is something like, if you're ordering like a wooden table and there's a scratch on it, well, the table is still the table, it still works and it still looks fine, but there's a little scratch, like that's a minor defect. A major defect would be like if it was like a slightly wrong color, and a critical defect would be like if one of the legs was broken, it just doesn't work. So for the minor defects, you're allowed 4%, for the major defects, it's 0.5%, and for critical, it's 0%. So as long as like your returns are more than 4%, then you're allowed to basically get those returned back to you. But if it's under 4%, then it's really not worth like bringing up.
Yeah, but that also probably is also linked to our first point, which is taking the time to find a good supplier. Because unless you have that relationship and you just basically tell them, one, you're probably not going to want to order from them again. And two, they're probably not going to help you out because it's from the very beginning, it wasn't the right relationship. However, now that takes us, what you just said, it takes us to point number 4, which is inspection. So as a beginner, should I get my products inspected if I'm just ordering a sample order for like 200, 300 units? What can I do if I can't afford the inspection? Is there like a way to do that? Should I get the inspection? What is an inspection? All of that stuff.
Sure. Yes. So to answer your question, I would say absolutely you must get a pre-shipment inspection, and it is very, very important for several reasons. First of all, it's not too expensive. You can expect to pay between like $150 and $200 for an inspection. But it's so important because, first of all, it sets the right principles in your business relationship to say that you are going to be checking this stuff. Because like if you place an order and they ship out an order and the factory's like, well, they never even inspected it. So the next order, they might be like, well, we can, use slightly less quality. We can take some shortcuts. They're not going to notice because they don't inspect. As long as you set the standard that inspections are very, very important to you, then they will have that mentality for all their future orders that they can't mess around on your order. And then also like sometimes like mistakes can happen, maybe an oversight on your part or the factory made a mistake. And the reason for inspections is to spot any of those mistakes before the goods actually go on water and get shipped, because it's a lot more expensive to fix a mistake once it arrives at source, either having to pay local workers in a warehouse and fix something there or having to ship the goods back to China. So if any mistakes are spotted, well, the supplier will fix it at their own expense, and then you can just ship it out knowing that they're fine. So it's very, very important to get your pre-shipment inspection. But it's also important to get your correct samples as well. And quite often, before you confirm any production, you should have a pre-production sample that you're happy with, that you receive that sample and you're like, okay, this is great. This is what I'm ordering. I'm happy to now pay my deposit because I confirm the sample. And then once your production is finished, then you get sent what's called a pre-shipment sample. And the pre-shipment sample is taken from the production that they've actually made. And you should compare your pre-production and pre-shipment sample right next to each other, and they should be exactly the same. And if there's any discrepancy from your pre-production sample and your pre-shipment sample, then you have a problem, but you fix it at the source, and then the inspectors can notify you if there's any differences as well. So that's why it's like really, really important to have an inspection. And also like one final thing I wanted to touch on was like, as you said, like the importance of sourcing. I feel that like sourcing is like, a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of margin in the buying price as well as the selling price, because quite often if you aren't sourcing correctly, and people just buy a product from China, let's say it's $10 and they sell it for 30 and they're like, okay, this is my margin. Whereas if they really could have bought that same product for $8 instead of 10, well, now that $2 per unit you could have put into advertising, into VA, scaling your business. So like there's so much margin in the buying price, not just the selling price as well. And once you realize that, that's how you can really elevate and scale and grow your business.
So basically you're saying take your time, find the right prices, find the right manufacturer. Don't just search on Alibaba, find the first 10 people and then that's it, give up and not dig deep.
Yeah,
because that's what I see actually people doing, because when you get to the part where you want to start speaking with suppliers, you're kind of tired because you've been searching for a product idea for such a long time. You're so excited and you want to get it over with. So you find a supplier on Alibaba and you say, that's it. Okay, I want to start as soon as possible. However, you should take your time.
For sure. I mean, and also like it's quite a fun process as well. Like, navigating through Alibaba, like aligning who's the right person to work with.
Sure.
And as you said as well, like I've got a YouTube channel, and the first video I ever made was my top 7 tips for finding the right supplier on Alibaba.
Perfect.
And that kind of keeps you right as like a checklist of what you need to be looking for when you go on Alibaba.
Perfect. Now, everybody should go and watch this video. Actually, they should watch the masterclass, which is also linked in the description box below, and go to your channel and watch all your great content. Kian, thank you so much for all these tips. And well, I'll see you soon.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. And let's do it again soon.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Obviously, we wanted to keep this video brief because sourcing and all the tips that Kian has, well, we can go on for forever and ever, but we wanted to keep the video brief and light for you to get general knowledge. Let me know if you have any questions by leaving a comment in the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you check out the live masterclass with Kian and everything related to Amazon Sellers Society Middle East. I will see you in another video with more information. Bye.